Good morning, everyone. I'm Natalie Fanny Gonzalez. We're going to kick off the March 17 County Council meeting. We're going to start with a proclamation recognizing National Theater Day by Councilmember Glass. Go ahead. Thank you.
Madam President, I think the term you were looking for is it's showtime. And we're done. Come on in, come on. Yeah, say, okay, please. Still don't know what stage left and what stage right, but you know, we're in center stage right now. So good morning, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day as well. There's been a lot of news about theater and about arts in the DC region, and the fact that the Trump administration is closing the Kennedy Center for 2 years' time. They say it's for renovations, but what they have done to that institution has decimated it to the point where nobody wants to visit the Kennedy Center, which is a shame. It is a shame for the DC region. It's a shame for all of the performers and musicians and actors and support staff that work there, that live here in Montgomery County, who are members of the guilds and the unions. It's a shame. But thankfully, we have incredible institutions here in Montgomery County that have been lifting their curtain, opening their doors, and performing for the entire DC region. And I think now more than ever, we need to continue laughing and sharing our emotions and brightening people's spirits because these are tough times, but that's what theater does. That's what the arts does. And what it also does is bring money to our local economy. The arts and humanities sector contributes $251 million to our local economy every year. And in addition to tickets, the average ticket purchaser spends about $25 on average going out to eat, shopping before they go to a store, go to a show. And then ultimately, we know that turns into nearly $66 million in local spending. And so there is an ecosystem, not only of performance, but also of economy. And I'm really glad that members of our theater community are here this morning, probably much earlier than they normally go to work. They're all night owls, I know for sure, but I'm really glad they're here to celebrate this day and to honor. And so what I'd like to do is pass the mic, and everyone gets to introduce themselves and also share with everybody what might be in store at your local theater.
Wow. First, hi. Good morning. I'm Michael Barrett Jones. I'm the Director of Development at Roundhouse Theater. We are getting ready to perform our 24th annual Sarah Metzger play, our teen performance company, directed, designed, and acted completely by teens with some mentorship from our professional staff. That's next weekend.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Mercier. I'm the Deputy Director of Advancement at Only Theater Center. I'll let Kevin here from Only Theater as well speak about what's upcoming. I'll just mention that we just closed a world premiere new musical called Little Miss Perfect. It was a wonderful run, really connected with young audiences, and that's kind of the power of live theater, is seeing your story on stage, recognizing that you too have a voice, that you belong in your community, that you're able to speak up. It was a really powerful experience for a lot of teens and young adults who came to see Little Miss Perfect, and so we were thrilled to share that, and I'll let Kevin share what's upcoming.
Good morning. My name is Kevin McAllister. I'm the Director of Curated Programming and the Artist Advocate at Only Theater Center. Upcoming, we are about to open a production of a play called Appropriate by Brandon Jacob Jenkins that'll run through the spring. And then this summer, we are doing what we call our Only Outdoors series, which is about 6 weeks of outdoor programming featuring everything from drag shows, jazz concerts, tribute bands, from everything to Queen to what do they call them? McQueen, as well as there's some blues going on as well. So there's something for everyone, in addition to K-pop Demon Hunter sing-along. So if you've got some kids, please bring them out as well.
Hi, Denisha Crosby. I'm the Director of Education at the Roundhouse Theater. As Michael had mentioned, we are getting ready to do our Sarah Metzger Memorial Play by our Team Performance Company. We just closed on Sunday, the world premiere of Nothing Up My Sleeve. And I can't wear the Director of Education hat without both pointing out that, yes, we have a huge main stage program in downtown Bethesda, but we also have a huge education program. So as we were laughingly saying, I was the one who didn't show up in heels because I'm going to go out and work with Montgomery County Public School students all afternoon this afternoon, as that's a huge part of what Roundhouse does as well.
Good morning. My name is Ebony Price, and I'm with Black Rock Center for the Arts. And you stole our programs because Black Rock Center for the Arts does all the things. And one thing that I would like to highlight is in April, we have a live series of jazz. We're dedicating live music in one of our galleries, the K Gallery. And we have a wonderful jazz live series in an intimate setting with some perks in between. And when you hear from Reva, she's going to get more into our programs.
Good morning. My name is Joanne Lamparter. I'm the Chief Artistic Officer at Imagination Stage, and we are very excited this weekend to open a show for our youngest theater patrons called Good Morning, Good Night. It's for ages 1 to 5. We are also excited to open Pete the Cat this summer, and we are very proud to represent Montgomery County as we tour educational theater programming around the country in partnership with Kaiser Permanente and address mental health topics.
Good morning. I'm Shira Sachs. I am the Associate Director of Marketing at Imagination Stage. And the one thing that Joanne left out was that we are opening this week Cat Kid Comic Club, the musical, which is only here this week. And so public performances Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Hello, my name is Reva Thompson. I'm the Director of Education at Black Rock Center for the Arts, and happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. So we have at Black Rock our MoComCon in partnership with the library this weekend. We're really excited about that. And then we also have in the summer some amazing education camps for youth. They get to come and do musicals or put on a showcase, so we're really excited about that this summer.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Sarah Chapin. I'm the Managing Director of Adventure Theater MTC in Glen Echo Park. I'm so thrilled to be surrounded by so many other arts educators. That's so much of the work that we do at Adventure. We have a professional main stage program. We're currently running Freckle-Faced Strawberry based off the Julianne Moore book. And we're excited to have someone from Imagination is coming to direct our summer show, Sleeping Beauty, the Time Traveler. So that'll be very exciting. And I'm going to pass it over to Lisa Carrier-Baker to tell you more about our Academy programs.
Hello, good morning. My name is Lisa Carrier-Baker. I'm the Academy Director at Adventure Theater MTC. Like Sarah said, we have Freckle-Faced Strawberry going on, but as the education side, we have many shows that children are going to be putting on. We have Shrek Jr. coming up with a cast of 40, split in two because there were so many kids we had to split it because that's way too many. We also have our pre-professional program Capstone called Spotlight that we have coming up in May. And last week we had a fantastic cabaret that we do every year for Academy scholarships, because one of our real passions in the Academy is to make sure that we have accessible theater education for anyone who walks in the door, that we're able to give them scholarships, that we're able to support them financially if they need it. We also have scholarships for the summer. We have summer programs coming up also at 2 locations, our Glen Echo location for elementary schools and our high school students at the Wintergreen Plaza location in the city of Rockville.
Well, thank you, everybody, for sharing with us the performances that you have lined up. Some as this weekend, as recent as this weekend. And, you know, what you've also heard is that we have programs in theaters all across Montgomery County. So there is accessibility, there is access, and there is equity. And that's what we love about our arts and humanities here in Montgomery County. So with that, I'm going to read the proclamation. Come on in. I don't know what the term for that is, but there we go. The County Council of Montgomery County, a proclamation. Whereas Montgomery County and the greater Washington region are home to a wide array of theater companies and institutions that celebrate artistic expression, uplift diverse voices, drive economic activity, and foster a sense of community. And whereas Montgomery County's arts and humanities sector helps generate $251 million back into our local economy and supports over 5,000 jobs, both on and off stage. And whereas our local theaters offer classes, scholarships, volunteer opportunities, events, and award-winning productions of both beloved classics and regional premieres for residents and people of all ages and backgrounds to enjoy. And whereas theater is an art form, is an exercise in storytelling, giving the cast, crew, and audience of every show a unique opportunity to build empathy and strengthen social ties. And whereas we are proud to support local theater organizations because they are an investment in our economic, cultural, and community's well-being here in Montgomery County for all residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland hereby celebrates local theater companies for their contributions to our local economy and culture. Signed on this day, the 17th of March, by myself and Council President Fanny Gonzalez. Congratulations and thank you for all you do.
So the show must go on. And I think everybody's, that was fun. Thank you so much, Councilmember Glass. Before we move on to general business, I want to note that Councilmember Balcom, Council Vice President Baron Balcom, she's waving in the screen. She's representing the County Council on an economic development trip in Taiwan. Thank you so much for being there for us. And she'll be virtual today, if not all the day, most for the day. So thank you for doing that. So, Madam Clerk, would you please share today's announcements?
Good morning. Public hearings on the proposed FY27 operating budgets and FY27 to 32 public service program and fiscal policy will be held on Tuesday, April 7th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m., Wednesday, April 8th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m., and Thursday, April 9th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. at the Council Office Building. Those wishing to provide testimony must register in advance on the Council website or by calling 240-777-7803. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to action for approval of minutes for February 23rd, 2026 State Legislative Session and February 24th, 2026 Council Session have been circulated for review. Are there any objections to approving these minutes? Seeing none, these minutes stand approved. The Council will now sit as the District Council for action on two zoning text amendments. The first one is action on zoning text amendment 26-03, Biohealth Priority Campus eligibility. The Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee recommends approval with amendments. This bill is led by Council Member Fritzen, co-sponsored by Council President Natalie Fanny Gonzalez and Council Members Lutke, Balcon, Evans, and Stewart. Chair Fritzen, who's also the lead sponsor, would you please share the committee's recommendations?
Thank you. Appreciate it, Madam President. Thank you to colleagues. The Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee held a work session in early March. The committee unanimously recommended approval. This measure was introduced in January. I do have a few comments as the sponsor, if I can do that now. This is really exciting for me. This is about momentum, making sure that Montgomery County doesn't just keep pace, but that we actually lead and we move forward. Several years ago, we took a major step forward by creating an expedited approval process for biohealth facilities, cutting the timelines that it takes to bring biohealth, where Montgomery County is a global leader, by 75%, sending a clear message that we are open for bio and that we are open for business. This zoning text amendment is part of an Accelerate MoCo package that I'm putting together, builds on that foundation, making it easier, faster, and cheaper to bring both biohealth projects to Montgomery County and to make it easier to have these life-saving technologies here in our community. With this effort, we will significantly expand opportunities to qualify for expedited review by reducing the eligibility thresholds and including the adaptive reuse of existing office space. We can't control everything. We can't control construction costs. We can't control global economic and macroeconomic factors, but we can control our own processes. And we can choose to green tape projects that are critical to our economic future and to our quality of life. Projects that allow for innovation, that are developing cures and treatments and life-saving technologies that literally not only improve but save lives. This zoning text amendment is another tool in our toolkit to ensure that Montgomery County doesn't just keep up, but we lead. Thank you to the co-sponsors, Council President Fani Gonzalez, Councilmember Lukey, Council Vice President Balcom, Councilmembers Evans, Stewart, and Jawando. I want to thank especially Ms. Nadeau for all of her work on the original and on this zoning text amendment and on the entire Accelerate MoCo package. And also thank you to the Planning Department, who was really helpful in crafting this initiative. I really look forward to us moving this forward and sending a clear message that we are going to get aggressive in our interest in attracting investment and in attracting bio and in being a global leader in biohealth and life science.
Thank you. Before I turn it to Council staff for any additions, I see Councilmember Lori Sells.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to my colleague, Councilmember Friedson, for introducing this legislation. Anything we can do to attract and new businesses and grow our biotech corridor is certainly important. And I don't believe I signed on as a co-sponsor. It might be too late, but if possible, I would love to co-sponsor this legislation, but I will certainly be voting for its successful passage.
I'll second the amendment
to add
you as a co-sponsor.
Councilmember Friedson.
All in favor, say aye. Okay. Is there anything else that Council staff would like to add?
The only thing to add is the PHP committee made one very minor technical amendment to update some cross-references. So that's it from Council staff.
I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. With that, we have a recommendation from the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee. This is a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lukey?
Yes.
Councilmember Lukey votes yes. Councilmember Mink?
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales?
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Glass? Yes. Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Katz?
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Friedson?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedson votes yes. Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans votes yes. Councilmember Jawando? Councilmember Jawando votes yes. Councilmember Balcom?
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Fani Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fani Gonzalez votes yes.
And this bill, the ZTA has been approved unanimously. Thank you so much to the lead sponsor. We're going to move on to the next item is action on zoning text amendment 26-04, mixed income housing community eligibility. The Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee recommends approval with amendments. The lead sponsors are Councilmember Friedson and Councilmember Lori Sells. Chair of the committee, can you please make a report on this?
I can and I will. Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate it. This was introduced in January. This is the other companion to the Accelerate MoCo package. This is the housing piece. The other was the bio piece. The Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee work session was held in early March. The committee unanimously recommended approval, similar technical dynamic with an amendment. This ETA is really an effort to focus on accelerating our housing and making sure that we are expanding the mixed income affordable housing that qualifies for expedited review, reducing the time frame by 75%. That effort was modeled off the biohealth effort, the idea being if we want things to happen, we need to make them easier to happen. We need to make them cheaper and easier and faster for people to be able to invest and build housing in Montgomery County, to be intentional and serious about confronting our housing crisis with the urgency that it requires. Really proud to have worked with Councilmember Sales on the initial and on this update, which expands the eligibility to allow for more housing to be built, to expand it to 9% tax credits and 4% tax credits, not just the 9% tax credits, so that we can help reduce costs and bring new housing online faster. There have been estimates that an individual affordable housing project could have saved $8 million had it gone through this process. That's $8 million that can go to subsidize an entirely new affordable housing project, or $8 million that could go to deepen affordability, expand affordability within the existing projects that we have. I'm really excited about the work that we have done on the housing crisis, and I'm very excited about this measure in particular. It's not just a Montgomery County problem, it's a regional problem, but Montgomery County can be a leader. Less red tape means more savings, it means more opportunities, it means more housing that people can actually afford. And I just want to thank again Ms. Nadeau for all her work, the Planning Department for their efforts, and Council Members Lukey, Council President Fanny Gonzalez, Council Vice President Balcom, and Councilmember Evans for their co-sponsorship, and again to Councilmember Sales for her partnership on this and the previous effort. This is about purpose, it's about urgency, and it's about tackling the housing crisis with the seriousness that it requires, and I really appreciate the work of all of our colleagues in order to move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to hear remarks from the other lead of this really important ZTA, Councilmember Lorian Sales.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to my colleague, Councilmember Friedson, once again. I greatly appreciate his partnership on the first open ZTA, and this legislation is just building upon the opening pathways to economic necessity legislation. Expanding access to affordable housing is so important when we're seeing 30% increases in homelessness in our county. We're making it easier and faster for our developers to bring these projects to market, increasing our affordable housing supply, and also ensuring that our developers are and our residents are benefiting from these deeply affordable units, especially our working families and frontline workers, making it easier for our workforce to live closer to where they work. We already have one approved project in Bethesda, Tevis Place, and I look forward to cutting the ribbon, breaking ground, and just using this tool to help many more residents make Montgomery County their home. So thank you again, and look forward to hearing from my colleagues. We want to thank all the initial supporters, and more to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else for council staff to add?
Nothing to add.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so now we have a recommendation from the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee. This is a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lukey?
Yes.
Councilmember Lukey votes yes. Councilmember Mink?
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales?
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Glass? Yes. Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Katz?
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Friedson?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedson votes yes. Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans votes yes. Councilmember Juando? Yes. Councilmember Juando votes yes. Councilmember Balcom?
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez votes yes.
Thank you. The ZTA has been approved unanimously. Thank you so much to everyone involved. We are going to move on to item 2, Work sessions, exciting, on the FY 27-32 Capital Improvements Program. This is the first of several council work sessions on the Capital Improvements Program to preliminary review the committee's recommendations. Final action on this in the operating budget will take place in May. First up are several projects within the Department of Transportation. I'm gonna call on the chair of the T&E committee to please present the committee's reviews. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and thank you, colleagues, as we start off this CIP review. The first item that we're going to be taking up today is the CIP for transportation, which includes highway maintenance, traffic improvements, bridges, parking, roads, and pedestrian and bicycle facilities. The committee reviewed all of these categories and subcategories on February 19th. And while we adopted the county executive's proposal, the committee did make some recommended changes to 3 projects. First, the committee unanimously voted to restore the Summit Avenue Extension project and accelerate the initial $990,000 in design funding and move $22.5 million in further designed land acquisition and construction into FY 31 and 32. We added language for the Observation Drive Extended project to reflect recommendations in the Clarksburg Gateway Sector Plan that was unanimously approved by the council. Thirdly, we added $14.3 million beyond 6 years for the Oak Drive Maryland 27 sidewalk project to leave open the possibility of restoring phase 3 of the Oak Drive to Ridge Landing Place. This project scope had been eliminated as recommended by the county executive. And then one other item that's important to note, that Council Member Balcom requested a breakdown of funding regarding residential and rural roads within the residential rural roads project in the highway maintenance category, because we wanted to better understand how that breakdown was. And with that, that is the committee's recommendation, Madam President.
Thank you. I see Councilmember Kate Stewart, a member of the T&E committee.
I just want to say thank you to the chair and to Councilmember Balcom, who also serves as the committee, particularly for adding back in Summit Ave. And I want to recognize Mayor Tracy Furman from the town of Kensington and their entire town council for being wonderful advocates on this project. It feels like Groundhog Day because each year we've had to put this back in, and I'm glad there's a recommendation for that. If the council president, if this is appropriate time, I also wanted to ask a question, more of a clarification under the pedestrian facilities and bikeways. I know a number of us have received requests from Littonsville businesses and residents looking at the BIPA projects, and I think Mr. Mogus is going to make his way down. Regarding some of the work that's being there, and I just thought it would be helpful, given the number of emails we've received on this, if we could just talk about what is planned for that area, knowing that there may be more that the community can advocate for in the future regarding sidewalks and other things, but I thought it would be helpful to understand what is in the CIP itself. Mr. Mogus.
Good morning, Joe Mogus, Chief of the Division of Transportation Engineering at MCDOT. So there's a twofold answer to that. One is we have our Purple Line BIPA program, in which we are proceeding westerly from the Tacoma-Langley area all the way over to Littonsville and beyond. In addition to that, we also have our Littonsville Bridge project, which is an opportunity to couple those two efforts. So when we have our bridge reconstructed entirely, which will be an upgrade to include shared use path and a sidewalk, we'll be able to also incorporate some type of sub-project for that corridor as well. So the timing will actually work out theoretically with the sequence of Purple Line BIPA and the bridge project.
Great. Thank you very much. And I know there, from the walk we did with members of the community, there may be some other things in the future as these projects move forward. I appreciate the Department of Transportation meeting with folks and hope maybe in the future we can have another meeting with the community members to just clarify what's in the CIP and what are other things they may advocate for in the future.
I would say yes to all of that, and they could also just submit any requests or concerns right now as well.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Those are great updates. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak, so without objection. Oh, you knew now? Okay. Go ahead. I've been looking at you all this time and I see nothing. Go ahead, Council Vice President Balcom.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo Chair Glass's thank you to the Director Conklin for putting together the rural roads. We hear from our friends in the Ag Reserve about the equity of the rural road pavement, and that report really did lay it out very nicely. So thank you. And then also just wanted to call out Observation Drive. We just did a straw vote on the Gateway Sector Master Plan in Clarksburg, and Observation Drive is a critical component of that master plan. So I appreciate my colleagues on T&E for moving that forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Now, without objection, the Council agrees with the committee recommendation. Chair Evan Glass, can you please move on to the next item, which is conservation of natural resources?
The next item is conservation of natural resources, storm drains. This is a 6-year program with allocations of $61.9 million. And the largest increase in that budget is $4.7 million for the annual Water Quality Protection Fund operating budget and for storm drains, shifting them to the storm drain culvert replacement project. And there are 3 other level of effort projects within the facility planning, outfall repairs, and general storm drains as well. There is additional design work, but this program is funded entirely by the water quality protection revenue and bonds that are separate from the county's general obligating bond spending and affordability guidelines. The T&E Committee recommends approval of the FY27 to 32 storm drains CIP as recommended by the County Executive.
Thank you. Seeing nobody wanting to speak, we approve this with no objection. If we can please move on to the conservation of natural resources and stormwater management.
Next item is, as DEP shuffles, the next item is conservation of natural resources, stormwater management, and thank you to the DEP team as always. This is a 6-year program with allocations of $244.6 million. The program is funded mostly through the water quality protection bonds and long-term financing and some smaller fund amounts as well. Most of this is ongoing work to meet the impervious area retrofit requirement in the county's current MS4 permit. And the ongoing work reflects a mix of increases and decreases in the 6-year project. There are some project highlights that include general repair of stream assets, comprehensive flood management plan, implementation of the comprehensive flood management, stormwater management facility for major structural repairs, and then the Wheaton Regional Dam flooding mitigation project. The T&E Committee recommends preliminary approval of the FY27 to 32 stormwater management CIP.
Thank you, Chair Glass. I don't see anybody wanting to speak, so without objection, we approve this item. If we can move on to the next one.
Yep. The next item within the T&E Committee is recycling and resource management. This is a 6-year program with allocations of $38.4 million. The 6-year expenditure is a reduction due to ongoing projects that are moving through design and construction, though there are no changes in the total project cost assumed for the ongoing future projects. There is one new project that is recommended, and that is the Shady Grove Processing Facility Improvements, which will provide an ongoing level of expenditure to maintain, renovate, and upgrade equipment so that we can collect more and do more with what is collected. There are 4 ongoing projects that are recommended with no change in cost or scope, and that is the full upgrade to the existing recycling center complex, the Goody landfill remediation, the new organics processing facility, and the Oaks landfill leachate pretreatment plant retrofitting. The T&E committee recommends approval of the recycling and resource management CIP as recommended by the county executive.
Thank you so much. I see Councilmember Kate Stewart.
Thank you. I had raised this in our T&E committee session when we reviewed this and had objected to the new organics processing facilities description. As it is described, it is only looking at one location. It does say it's a placeholder dollars, but it is saying it's predicated on the Sugarloaf Citizens Association revising the current agreement. We have talked as a body, a full body here as a council, in addition to the T&E committee, about not just pinning our moving forward with a new organics processing facility or facilities to this one location. Understanding that, and I appreciate that DEP is moving forward and looking at other locations. Some may be taken off as not available, but those are conversations we should be having at committee and full council, and not decisions that are assumed to be made. So I am going to request again that in this PDF, and as we're talking about the new organics processing facilities, since this also is placeholder dollars, that we talk about it as exploring locations and do not tie it specifically to the Sugarloaf Citizens Association's decisions. Thank you.
Very well said. Councilmember Luque.
Thank you, Madam President. I echo Councilmember Stewart's comments and also would respectfully request that you provide the full body with a copy of the existing agreement between the county and the Sugarloaf Citizens Association so that we may review it independently. Thank you.
I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. I'm looking at that way just in case. No, okay. Without objection, we're going to move forward with the committee's recommendation. Next, thank you so much for coming. Next is the Revenue Authority. That's me. Mr. Miller, come this way. I'm going to kick it off as people move around. So the FY27-32 Capital Improvements Program, Revenue Authority, was reviewed by the Economic Development Committee, and the committee unanimously recommends approval of their CIP as recommended by the county executive. Just for highlight, to fund the 6-year CIP for the Montgomery County Revenue Authority, the MCRA, as they are known, is authorized to issue revenue bonds and other debt instruments which are repaid from user fees collected from MCRA, I like to say Revenue Authority, facilities. Projects at the Montgomery County Air Park may also receive state or federal grants, including from the Maryland Aviation Administration or Federal Aviation Authority. The committee also unanimously recommends approval of amending the text of the Montgomery County Air Park North End Hangar CIP, and the district council member, Councilmember Dawn Luque, was really crucial in that discussion. She took lead and we agreed. And then the last part was that the committee also plans to hold a work session in the fall of 2026 to discuss certain operational issues raised by the Air Park Community Advisory Committee. That's going to take place not just with the Economic Development Committee, but also with the T&E as a joint committee work session. We have had a couple already, and they have worked so well to move things forward, and I look forward to having another one in the fall. With that, I'm going to turn it to the District Council Member, Dawn Luque.
Thank you, Madam President, and great thanks to the Econ Committee for accepting the recommendation on the language changes for the project narrative of the North End Hangar at the Air Park, and I want to thank Mr. Miller and the Revenue Authority for their ongoing collaboration on that and commitment to community engagement for the benefit of the body. given some of the issues and concerns that the community, the Air Park Community Advisory Committee, and working with my office have surfaced about the condition and operations of existing hangars operated by a subcontractor of the Revenue Authority. It is important that we make clear that the Revenue Authority is going to control this new hangar, which is different from the way things are presently done, and is going to get feedback from the community before proceeding to construction of the new North End hangar facility. That's what's reflected in the language. Thank you all for the robust discussion and for the commitment to bringing back ongoing discussions about air park operations to a joint committee in the fall. We look forward to that discussion, and also want to clarify that the North End hangar will house at most 3 non-flight school planes. So those are for itinerant flights, not for flight schools. With that, thank you.
Thank you once again for your great contributions to this issue. And I see nobody else wants to speak. So without objection, these recommendations are approved. Thank you for coming, Mr. Miller. We're going to move on to item F, Community Development and Housing. The chair of PHP, Chair Fritzen, can you please provide your report?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee unanimously recommends approval of the Community Development CIP subcategory, the Nonprofit Preservation Fund CIP, and Affordable Housing Opportunity Fund CIP as recommended by the County Executive. The committee deferred a recommendation on the Affordable Housing Acquisition and Preservation CIP until the FY27 recommended operating budget, which we now have but didn't have a chance to review during committee for the Housing Initiative Fund, and that is customarily the case. That's how we have handled that every year. Due to the use of debt service in the HIF for taxable bonds funding and the potential for March CIP amendments. So we'll take that up. There's a lot of current revenue and other moving parts that interface very closely with the operating budget, and so we've traditionally deferred any action on that as a committee or as a body until we have reviewed both together. The committee also defers a recommendation for the Revitalization for Troubled and Distressed Common Ownership Community CIP until the same, the release of the recommended budget and the opportunity to review, since that is current revenue that is utilized in that project, and we need the opportunity to review that vis-a-vis the operating budget. So with that, we have a unanimous committee recommendation and concur with the county executive.
Thank you so much to the chair of PHP. I don't see anybody wanting to speak, and with that, without objection, we approved. We're going to move on to item G, Culture and Recreation Public Libraries. Can the chair of the Education and Culture Committee, Mr. Jawando, provide his report?
Yes, ma'am. Very, very quickly. And I know our libraries folks are making their way down. The Education and Culture Committee met on just, I think, last week and recommended approval of the county executive's transmittal of a total of $83 million in the 6-year CIP for Montgomery County Public Libraries, which we love. This is an increase of $8.2 million from the 25-30 CIP. And this is primarily due to cost estimates for the Clarksburg Library, which Vice President Balcom, I know, is eagerly awaiting, as the rest of us are, and the addition of a project to design and construct a new Shady Grove West Library, which would be a very cool pocket library. And we went through all the items, we asked questions, but we did ultimately approve and concur related to the Chevy Chase Library redevelopment, Noyes Library for young children, 21st Century Library enhancements, the library refurbishment program, which is one of the best programs we have, and the Wheaton Library and Community Recreation Center. So it was a 3-0 vote, and with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you to the chair of the committee. I see Councilmember Andrew Fritzen.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to the chair and the committee. I just had a couple questions about Chevy Chase Library. We're still getting a lot of questions about this from community members and from residents. In the passage of the budget, I believe it was 2022, there was language, a new library with a mixed-use development at the site of the existing library related to planning and design money. I'm just wondering if redevelopment is still under consideration for that site, and If not, what was the specific rationale used not to move forward with redevelopment and move to a refresh?
Hi, David Dice, Director, Department of General Services. There is still anticipated development on site. We're moving forward with the refresh of the building itself back to the original schedule or approach, but the balance of the site, the library itself will be refurbished within its own footprint. The balance of the site, we've already gotten some preliminary plans from prospective developers on bringing in housing on the balance of that site. So that still is in the works. It's not in the initial phase, which is focusing on the library itself, which is much overdue for a refurbishment.
Is that going to include ADA?
Yes, it will.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So you're going to spend money to refresh
the library,
the site itself, the library itself, which the community has long been advocating for.
Yes.
And then there will be housing built at another part of the site, like on the parking lot?
Right, on the parking lot, on the west end and the back end of the parking lot. We will come in with a housing scheme. As I said, we've already gotten a couple of proposals that show the ability to do so without it impacting the library itself. I'd be happy to brief you on those at a later date.
I'd love to be brief, but I also think the public needs to be brief because this is a public conversation that started, and I feel like there have been private decisions that have been made. I don't know if they've been made by the county executive or by DGS or by libraries, but they haven't been shared. And I'm the district council member. They haven't been shared with me, but more importantly, they haven't been shared with the public. And I just find that to be, concerning. I mean, this was a public conversation. It included budget language, which is a very significant step that was taken, almost never has been taken before. I can only think of 2 situations where something similar, where budget language like this was added in order to compel the executive branch to move forward with a process that is really supposed to be required anyway, through actually a bill that I sponsored and this council took up as the first bill that it voted on. So I'm not trying to be combative here, but there is a disconnect between the public conversation that occurred and then subsequent decisions that have been made. There was not a conclusion to those conversations that led to the refresh and refurbishment, which is something that the community's been advocating for. I think many people will see that as very positive. But then a decision made that there is a different approach to the housing and how plausible or feasible that is.
Well, a couple of things. Neither libraries nor DGS decide. We recommend. It's the executive that decides, and we're representing his CIP. And if you recall, initial public meetings on this, the potential redevelopment of this site in its various iterations was held, and the community was relatively divided on keep the library as it is or redevelop the whole site. So there was a lot of discussion earlier on, and the projects idled somewhat while other projects were focused on and some decisions were made. We've met extensively with the executive on this, and he has recommended and approved going forward with the modernization of the library itself, and then coming back and seeking development proposals formally at a later date.
What's the timing of seeking the development proposals formally?
It'll be after the refurbishment of the library, but not a specific date.
After June 23rd, give or take?
Not a specific date at this time.
Got it. Okay. Included in what you share with us, if you could share with us the housing yield of what is anticipated or what is being asked for, the level of affordability, or the amount, both percentage and depth of affordability, and the cost analysis that was done between doing redevelopment with housing versus doing the refurbishment and infill development in part of the site.
Happy to do that. We have a very thick folder.
Okay. Well, I look forward to reviewing that very thick folder, and I would request that you share that very thick folder with the public that has been very engaged in this process. There were mixed feelings. I think there continue to be mixed feelings, but I don't think that's a reason for the executive to avoid the conversation. I think the conversation needs to be had, and ultimately, folks don't have to agree with the decision that the executive makes, but they ought to know what went into the decision.
All right. Well, while a decision has not been formally made as to what those development schemes, what the formal development schemes will be, since there's options to consider, I don't think it's fair to convey that a decision's been avoided. It simply just hasn't been made as yet.
Well, part of the decision has been made, because once you spend the money on the refurbishment, that is a decision.
That is
because
correct.
It presupposes
that's the recommendation
options.
before the council. Yes.
So I do think, because that decision has been made, there was an opportunity that was missed for the public to have been brought in to understand why that decision was made. That's what I think should happen now. And then ultimately there are subsequent decisions that will have to be made, and information that I am not aware of and that you're going to share with us, which I appreciate, but also should be shared with the public. So I
No
appreciate
argument
it.
there.
And I understand this is not your decision. That has been very clear throughout the process, that neither libraries nor DGS are making facilities-based or libraries-based decisions in this case. This is the county executive responding to community concerns that he has heard and making decisions on behalf of the department.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see Councilmember Don Lukey.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank the ENC committee for its support of the Shady Grove West Library project, and emphasize how critically important it is to the community to be a tremendous cultural and community gathering space. And Director Graham, I am always excited to see what level of creativity you bring with your team to the space. And I've been very appreciative and encouraged by her and her engagement with the West Side Shady Grove community to understand what's needed and the history behind this. And so as a bit of a reminder, this library in this spot would be in the final new apartment building that is it's about to start being constructed on the west side of Crabs Branch in the Shady Grove sector plan. It was promised this facility in not just one, but 2 sector plans for that area. And that building is set to begin its construction imminently. And if we miss this opportunity, that ground floor space may be empty for a while, which is also not a good thing for a community. And that's not something we want to miss. And especially since this has been a long sort of suffering area of county development, as over the many years, there have been missed opportunities for moving the bus depot across the street, the MCPS bus depot, to open up the space to continue delivering the types of things that were promised in that sector plan, including a grocery store and elementary school. And I do want to thank DGS, since Director Dice is here and Greg Ossen is here, and MCPS, the county executive, and this council, thank you all, for helping to move the needle on the bus depot. But that's just kind of very much a part of the history of this area, that community, and this is the type of transit-oriented development that we've been so strongly encouraging as a body. So we need to be mindful of that as we move forward and we're making decisions about capital investments. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much to the 2 district council members for uplifting important projects in their communities, and we look forward to the continued partnership with our partners in the county executive's office. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak, and with that, okay, go ahead.
Sorry, good morning. Just briefly speaking of the Chevy Chase Library and redevelopment, just to note that the county executive did transmit an amendment to this project with his operating budget to provide additional funding to address the facility issues. So per the council's typical procedures, that project will go back to the EC committee for review during the operating budget discussions before advancing back to council.
Thank you for that update. Okay, with that, I don't see any objections. These recommendations are approved. Okay, thank you. The final item is H, General Government, Economic Development. That's also under the Economic Development Committee, which I chair. This is a very exciting one. We have 3 highly important projects sent to us by the County Executive recommended FY27-32 CIP. One of them is the Institute for Health and Computing. That's a new project and supports funding for a new building at the North Bethesda Metro. And then the other 2 projects are the North Bethesda Metro Station area, bless you, North Bethesda Metro Station area redevelopment infrastructure and the White Oak Science Gateway redevelopment project. The committee has unanimously recommend these 3 projects for approval. Just a reminder that on the White Oak Science Gateway redevelopment project, just last month, this council approved a resolution to create a development district for Viva White Oak, and this will allow the project to fund public infrastructure in Viva White Oak using the TIF, which is a tax increment financing system. And then the other highlight, as I mentioned, was the North Bethesda Metro Station area redevelopment infrastructure. This is an ongoing $11.6 million project that supports site work on that unimproved WMATA-owned property in North Bethesda. And then the last one was the one on the Institute for Health and Computing, another very key project for the county as we move forward on really becoming the #1 place in the nation on life sciences. Is there anything else that the staff would like to add? No, thank you. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. With that, this recommendation is approved without objection. And I just want to remind everybody here, especially the public, every decision that we made today is subject to final consideration under the reconciliation time that takes place in May. So yes, you may celebrate, but don't do it with champagne. Don't do it. So May is going to be very difficult, but we'll get through this. With that, thank you so much to everyone who came here today. We are going to move on to item 3, but before that, we have Councilmember Will Jowondo.
Thank you, Madam President. Before we turn to the consent calendar, and we've been very efficient, so there's time for this discussion, I'd like to make a motion related to Bill 526, the Unmasked ICE Act. As colleagues know, and the public knows, this bill would prohibit masking by all law enforcement, federal, state, and local, operating in Montgomery County, with exceptions for SWAT operations, public health protections, and water rescues. I'm thankful to the co-sponsors of the bill, Councilmembers Mink, Evans, Sales, Stewart, and Glass, and I appreciate the overwhelming community support from many organizations and individuals. At my request, the Council has also voted to support the state level legislation, and I've testified in support of that bill as well a couple weeks ago. And while I'm hopeful that they will pass this bill and it gets across the finish line, we are in an emergency. There's no time to waste in voting to build in safeguards for our residents against the cruelty, the violence, and the unlawfulness that we're seeing from the federal and immigration enforcement officials. Interestingly, as you recall, last week during public hearings on the bill I introduced on algorithms, we heard from another local jurisdiction in Rockville that is moving forward with the change that they also hope to see at the state level because protecting residents is too important to wait. And although this bill was introduced at the same time as the County Values Act, and it had a public hearing on the same day, the Unmasked ICE Act was not scheduled for a committee session. I appreciate that after we announced that this motion would be made late Friday, this item was scheduled for a Public Safety Committee session in late April. I want to briefly address just some of the arguments that I've heard against not considering the bill, and then I'll make the motion and turn over the floor. First, timing of the state bill. For those who are not as familiar with the state legislation, it is unclear currently when any state requirement would apply to the county, even once the state legislation is passed. As of now, the legislation requires that a policy be drafted by a state board that would not be effective until October. And it's unclear how long the policy would take to be completed and when it would even be implemented in the county. And while I testified at the state level that the legislation should be effective sooner, it's unknown at this point how that would work. And we owe it to our residents to get something on the books more quickly in this emergency. Second, the lawfulness of the bill, which has also been brought up. The law right now literally is being made in real time, and I believe we must meet the moment that our community demands. As you may have heard me previously mention, there has been one federal judge that has put on any ruling related to masking. It's Judge Snyder, a federal district judge in California, who struck down California's and LA County's mask ban because it was exempted state law enforcement. Not because it said you can't wear masks, but because it exempted state law enforcement. And it was unfair to just require it of federal law enforcement. In fact, in her ruling, she went on to say, quote, "The court finds that federal officers can perform their federal functions without wearing masks," leaving the door open for a bill that applies equally to all levels of government. And indeed, the state is moving forward with a new bill that requires both federal, state, and local law enforcement to not wear masks. Our bill complies with that, requiring all three levels. And law is made in real time here. If someone wants to, my colleagues have said from this dais, if we're sued, we're sued. And people being dragged out of their cars, they're being violently attacked. And we need to make it clear that we expect officers to not wear masks in our county, whether they're federal, state, or local. And if we get sued, we get sued. We'll be doing our part to help make sure the law is more just. We'll be doing what Thurgood Marshall did when he went around the country attacking unjust laws and building a case. And so even if folks plan to vote against the bill next week, I'd ask finally that you just give the opportunity for the bill to be discussed and voted on. While I probably won't agree with some of the reasoning from colleagues, I don't understand why we would delay it and not give it an opportunity to be discussed in a timely manner. So accordingly, under Council Rule of Procedure 5D and E, I move to add to the March 24th Council agenda a work session in action on Council Bill 526, Police Mask or Facial Coverings Prohibited, the Unmasked ICE Act.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Woljawando. I consider this motion out of rule. First of all, it has been said for weeks the chair of the Public Safety Committee is going to schedule this bill after the General Assembly is done with a mask bill in Annapolis. For weeks, it's now officially on the record for April 17. It's already scheduled only a few weeks from today. And I have said and made a promise as Council President that every single bill that goes through committee, after it passes committee, it will come to full council right away. And on that, with that spirit, I have actually shared with the clerk that I want the mask bill, your bill, on the full council agenda for the end of April, after it goes through committee. I don't think it's okay to bypass committee on something so important. Also, I would like to add that I have been talking to the municipalities. If we pass this bill, it will not apply to the cities of Gaithersburg. It will not apply to Tacoma Park. It will not apply to the Park and Planning Commission. I know that none of these three jurisdictions have received a single phone call from anybody on this council, including the lead of this bill. So if we're talking about urgency, let's bring everybody together. That has not happened. Many of these jurisdictions within Montgomery County and also throughout the state, they are waiting for the General Assembly to provide guidance on this critical issue. We want to do it, but we want to do it right. So I'm going to ask you, please don't divide this council on something so important. Please understand that we have been committed for weeks, and I trust and respect the chair of the Public Safety Committee, Sidney Katz. And I know, and that bill has been already scheduled for his committee for April 17, after we're done in the Maryland General Assembly, as we have been said for weeks. So bringing this up out of the blue is not okay. And I'm going to ask each one of our colleagues to remember what's happening today. We do not get to bypass committees. That is not okay. We have a structure for a reason. And I'm not here to play politics with anybody. I absolutely care about this issue as somebody and the only person here who has been faced with deportation. I understand the fear of my community, and I also understand that in this county, the local police department, they do not wear masks unless there's like a very particular case. But we don't have that practice here. Let's make that absolutely clear when we're sending our messages out there. With that, I'm going to pass it to the chair of the Public Safety Committee, Sidney Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And I, I'm sorry, what? Oh, I thank you very much, Madam President, and I appreciate the conversation. You know, on Friday, there were two press releases sent by Councilmember Jawanda's office. And the second one was that he and Councilmember Mink were going to bring this forward, and I appreciate that. But the first press release that he sent was about, it was maybe a couple hours prior to this one, and it was about the Chesapeake Climate Action Network Action Fund. And in there, he talks about what he wanted to do on that as well. And that press release ends with saying, Montgomery County doesn't need to be first. We need to get this right. And that's where I am on this. I want to be perfectly clear. There's been much misinformation, and there continues to be much misinformation on this topic. But I want to be perfectly clear. I am in favor of what this legislation does. What I'm not in favor of what it doesn't do. It's been said many times, and I'm going to ask Ms. McCartney Green to please come forward from council staff. It's been said many times that we, the Montgomery County Council, has the authority to tell other jurisdictions what to do. And that, and Ms. McCartney Green will say, I always say it's when, she will say when I'm wrong, it's not if I'm wrong, but it is my understanding that we do not have the authority to tell any other jurisdiction other than Montgomery County Police what to do. The state of Maryland does have that jurisdiction. They are within 3 weeks of us knowing what they will and won't do on this bill. If they do something on this bill, they have the authority to have the other agencies, probably not the federal government, but the other agencies in Maryland to do what they want to do. Once we know what they will allow and what they won't allow, I think that in itself is something that we need to discuss. I also want to bring forward that the Advisory Commission on Policing, as we call it, the ACP, sent a letter just the other day talking about this, and that they talk about that they have no indication, and I'm taking parts, I think it was a 9-page letter, we have no indication that MCPD, Montgomery County Police Department, officers wear masks to hide their identities or intimidate the public. On the contrary, current MCPD practices for officers to wear identifying badges, names, and identification number on their uniform. They are proud of who they are. They are proud of what they are doing. I added that last part. The ACP report does not that it couldn't find any written MCPD policies regarding face coverings. MCPD said that their policy and planning division is currently updating the code to align with current practice in Maryland Police Accountability Act, requirements to reflect their longstanding practice of incorporating all 3 identities on full police uniforms. It also goes on to say that it talks about this bill's directly. Bill 526 seeks to dictate what local police as well as state and federal agencies may or may not wear in the performance of their duties. This may conflict with federal authority, raising issues under the U.S. Constitution Supremacy Clause, and may not be enforceable as the Maryland Attorney General's Office has opined regarding the similar bill under consideration by the Maryland State Legislature. Indeed, by including Section 1E, severability, the drafters of Bill 526 signal an expectation that the bill may be challenged in court and that some of these provisions could be found unconstitutional or otherwise invalid by a decision of court of competent jurisdiction. Additionally, Some commissioners expressed doubt about the wisdom of advancing Bill 526, while the Maryland State Legislature is considering similar legislation which would supersede the county's bill. If passed into law, the state bill might require that the county modify its legislation to resolve any conflict between the county and state versions. In any case, we believe others are better positioned to judge the timing of Bill 526 on whether including state and federal law enforcement agencies is a legally sound approach, has merit and as an aspirational statement reflecting the county's values, or is useful testing relevant issues in court. I want to continue to say again that I am supportive of this legislation. I am not supportive of it going until we know what the state does and doesn't do. And I will turn to Ms. McCartney Green, but I will end, and many of you have heard me say this before, that Harry Truman used to say, you can solve almost anything if you don't care who gets the credit. I believe that we need to make certain that our public is safe, that we do things the proper way, and I believe that we need to continue to make certain as soon as the state does or doesn't do what they or this legislation is before them, as soon as they do it, I'm more than happy to bring this and have scheduled this. And if they do it faster, as far as I'm concerned, we can schedule it faster as well. And with that, with your indulgence, I'd like to turn to Ms. McCartney Green.
Thank you, Chair Katz, and good morning, council members. Just to clarify here on the rule of law, I want to be very clear that what is clear in county code and as a charter county is that we do have the authority to regulate local police. And that's where my comments will end as it relates to state and federal. That's not here to discuss, and would generally recommend that to have that discussion and talk about legal consideration that be done in a closed session. But for the purpose of here today, it is clear by county code that we can regulate our local police.
Thank you. And with that, I'll turn back.
Thank you so much. And again, the chair of the Public Safety Committee has stated for weeks that he's going to place this item in his committee right after the Maryland General Assembly finished their business, or when this piece of legislation in Annapolis was completed. And in that spirit, it's already on the schedule. I see Councilmember Kristen Mink, who has already seconded the motion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. We heard hours of testimony from people calling on us to act with the urgency that they are experiencing on the ground. And this is a really full circle moment for me, because before I ran for office, I was a community organizer. My job was to help the community advocate to their legislators for policy changes. And I ran for office because in that job, I watched constantly everyday people pour their hearts out, share their stories, put sweat and tears into trying to get the people sitting in seats of power to do the right thing, to be a little brave, to vote the right way. And I thought, God, if any of us who were working so hard, who were giving of ourselves so much just to try to get powerful people to act on our community's behalf, if any of us were just in those seats, we'd be better off. And now I'm here. I am in a seat of power. All 11 of us, we are in these seats of power, and we are being called upon by people who are saying goodbye to their children or saying goodbye to their parents each morning, not knowing if they will see them again at night. And we are being called upon to take every action we can as fast as we can. They have called on us to move this bill as fast as we can. It should take an extraordinarily high bar for us to be delaying any of these. I do not believe this bill meets that bar. And this is an opportunity to get it back on track together. Yes, there is a bill related to masking at the state level. You know what else is at the state level? The Trust Act. Many other bills that we move here at the county level are also considered at the state level. I was happy to be the first to agree to sign on to that bill and to help get my colleagues to sign on. It was the right thing to do. I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we did it unanimously. the unmasking bill coming to the state. If it passes, as has been said, it will not immediately put a mask ban into effect. It will require a state commission to develop such a policy for use by local jurisdictions. And if the state bill passes, the county's Unmask ICE Act will provide a strong model for that commission to work off of. Montgomery County has a proud history of playing that role exactly. It will also ensure that we don't make our residents needlessly wait months or longer on the state on a timeline that is out of our control to put this policy that they sat here and told us they want in place. On the constitutional questions, a federal judge last month, after the introduction of this bill, just last month, described a policy written like this one as what can pass constitutional muster. At the same time, let's remember that the force we're supposed to be fighting against is, without question, trampling our residents' constitutional rights every day. And ultimately, this is not just about this bill. This is about who we are going to be in Montgomery County in these times as we sit in these seats of power. And this is why it's so important for me to go to bat for this. This frame is going to come up again. We can make arguments to say no, we can make arguments to delay, but we can just as easily refute those arguments. So who are we going to choose to be? Are we going to be a county that hems and haws, that leaves it to other jurisdictions to push and test and open doors, or are we going to be the ones pushing, trying every tool, fighting with everything we can? Please consider who our community, the people who put us in these seats, wants us to be. I think every person up here has said, if there's anything we can do, we should do it. Let's actually do that. Let's show the community that we all meant it and that we hear them, that they have elected a council that will fight to move the efforts they are calling for forward. Please vote to just give this bill the public discussion and vote that it deserves to have on time.
Thank you. As a reminder, this bill is already on schedule for April 17. Councilmember Don Lukey.
Thank you, Madam President. I certainly appreciate the passion, the effort of all my colleagues and on these issues. This is a horrific time. And I also know that there has been an undercurrent of if someone isn't quite going along with something that might have some constitutional hair on it or more than constitutional hair on it or preemption issues, et cetera, that we somehow care less. And that is a terrible thing to do to the other members of this body. Now, I appreciate Ms. Ludine McCartney-Green and her succinct discussion of the law as she had to. I would respectfully request that we do have, as a body, a closed session scheduled for legal advice of counsel on this topic. But I do want to say this. I believe that the people who put us in these seats expect us to both be passionate and honest and in pursuit of the law and hold firm on the rule of law and to understand what we can and cannot do and to be able to articulate that thoroughly, accurately, and completely to the many residents we serve. People are horrified right now. People are anxious. And we owe them something more than getting something on the books. What we owe them is taking legislative action that we actually have the ability to enforce and that can pass muster under our United States Constitution, which may be under assault down the road in DC, but shouldn't be under assault from us. And I, for one, stand firm in that. And I understand that we as a charter county government only have authority over exactly one law enforcement department operating entirely within the boundaries of the state of Maryland or Montgomery County, and that is the Montgomery County Police Department, which, as Public Safety Chair Katz already referenced, doesn't normally wear masks, has a very limited policy on that, and is in the process of making sure they are revising things to be clear, direct, and transparent with the public about that. So I do believe this is premature. I do appreciate that Chair Katz scheduled this for after the conclusion of the Maryland General Assembly's session. I know that our partners in the state legislature are working through their own very tough and difficult issues on the legal front with respect to this, to the state bill. We owe it to ourselves and to the people we represent to take counsel and guidance from the Office of the Attorney General, from what our colleagues are working through in Annapolis, and also to not create confusion and conflict between state and local law, particularly where the only thing that passage of this bill would do is regulate our police department. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. As a reminder, since the Trust Act was mentioned, when I introduced the Trust Act, you know what I did first? I worked closely in partnership with the Montgomery County Police Department. I worked closely and in partnership with each one of you to ensure that any issues that you had, yes, I did. Any issues that people had were worked out, including with Councilmember Don Lukey, including with the chair of the Police Safety Committee, especially with the police department, because yes, we are elected officials. We get to make laws, but who implements those laws? We need to ensure that the departments are in line and that there's no conflict there, because we owe that to the community who elected us. That's our responsibility. It's not our way and the highway. That's not how you create policy. Councilmember Kate Stewart.
Thank you. So as I sit in my seat of power, how I do my work is just as important as what we do. And I'm sorry, I am so emotional right now because I can't believe this is happening here in Montgomery County on this body. And I am so angry and heartbroken. How I do my work. I center those most impacted. I work collaboratively with community and colleagues, and I don't like surprises, and I don't surprise other people. If I thought for one moment that this bill was actually actively being blocked, I would do all I could to move it. But to accuse another colleague of blocking something, when we all know up here that we are against the actions of these federal agents, that we do not believe anyone should be masked in our community, that each of us have had friends taken from our community and have gotten those calls, each and every single one of us, not just one of us, every single one of us on this dais. And to, again, say this is being blocked is mischaracterized. And I'm so sorry, but Chairman Katz, Councilmember Katz, I have a deep respect for you. We have not agreed on a number of the immigration bills that came forward. In particular, we came to the Values Act in a different place, but both of us chaired the joint committee. And we spent time, listened to each other, and worked through it, had a committee session, and you put forth the recommendation amendment, which I think we all agreed to, made the bill better and clarified it for the public. And I want to thank you for that. And I think as we work through these other bills, as we can see, there are questions about them. We need to have work sessions, we need to work through them, and we need to do it expeditiously. And that is what we are doing as this body. And we do need to center those who are most impacted and working collectively and accusing each other up here of not sharing those goals, of not doing that work in this way is not conducive to us to be the public servants that our community needs right now. So I am really imploring all of us to center the people impacted, to work collaboratively, to not surprise each other, so that we can get through these times. Because this is not this week, this is not next month. We are in this for years. And while the people in these seats will change, it is our responsibility to set an example for those who will come next and for our community. And so I fully support this bill and all the bills that have come beforehand. I will not support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Councilmember Kate Stewart. I think you have done such a remarkable job, especially in the Joint Committee work session on the Values Act. And I respect you, and I really appreciate the truthfulness that you brought up a moment ago, because we needed it. This tactic of dividing council members on something that each one of us cares about is so wrong, and it's so awful and disgusting. And I remember the public hearing on the bill and seeing community members really confused about what the bill was about. And it was really heartbreaking to watch, but now we're here. Next, we have Councilmember Shara Evans.
I can speak. Okay. Yeah. You can go. I'm going to say what I'm going to say regardless of the order. So you can go ahead and go if you like.
Councilmember Lorenzo, you can go next. It shows Shara.
Okay, sorry about that. So I'm disappointed we're having this conversation. When we saw what happened across the country, we said not in Montgomery County. We agreed that we would throw everything at this federal government that has tried to divide and has tried to weaken our support for our immigrants. As the daughter of immigrants, this is personal. I will not allow politics to cloud my judgment on this issue. I've been very clear and consistent and vocal about supporting any legislation that has been introduced to prevent ICE coming into this community, to prevent ICE from disappearing our residents, to prevent ICE from taking up from occupying our buildings, from preparing to capture people in our parking lots of hospitals or any public spaces. Anything that anybody introduces that's going to keep this federal administration, that's what's disgusting. That is what we should call disgusting. It pisses me off that we have supported enthusiastically every single piece of legislation that has been introduced. But now we want to kowtow to other jurisdictions and wait for other people to tell us how to run our county, how to introduce legislation. We're waiting on other people while people are depending on us. That's not what I was elected to do. I don't need to wait on anyone to tell me how to vote. I don't need anyone to tell me how to do what we know is right in this community and what our constituents have demanded of us. These are difficult times, and these are about who is courageous and who's going to stand up for their residents. And if you are going to support every piece of legislation, just last week, the owner of Howard County's ICE facility is suing Howard County. I stood with Councilmember Glass, and as he said, let them sue us. And I said, let's go. I stood with the president when she introduced the Trust Act, every step of the way. Councilmember Mink, I stood with you. Councilmember Stewart, I stood with you on the legislation to ensure people can get their vehicles. There is no need to delay. Whether we wait for what happens in Maryland and we have to update our legislation, or they strengthen whatever is adopted in Maryland, that is what happens. But we don't wait for other people to tell us what to do. We don't need to be preempted. We lead. That's what we're elected to do. And anyone who wants to confuse what's happening here with anything else but politics is sadly mistaken. We are introducing a piece of legislation. We should hear what the people have to say, and we should let the process play out. I have a great deal of respect for every single one of my colleagues, especially as a chair. And I certainly understand the chair's prerogative. I do not believe in delaying or waiting if we have an opportunity to hear a piece of legislation that is going to keep our immigrant residents safe. I yield.
Thank you. Next, Councilmember Shara Evans.
All right. So I'm not going to listen to you all. I get to say I'm new until after I vote on the first budget. But what I will say is, having now served on 2 different bodies as an elected official, that I try to make sure that I respect and value the opinions of individuals, right? However you perceive things or how you perceive them. And so I even do this with my kids. I cannot tell you what emotion to feel or tell you what to do. If I can say this, I believe Councilmember Jawando did what he thought he needed to do. When your back is up against the wall, you do what you feel you need to do. So I'll say this, I signed on as a co-sponsor because I believe in this legislation. And as a person who, so I say that and I say this, and as a person who believes in good governance, my struggle is going against the policies that you have in place. So I would have supported going forward and asking for council colleagues to vote today had we not had a date. We have a date, and I want us to be able to have a discussion. I think what's most important is for the community to hear what all of the council members have to say. But what I would say as a new council member, that it could be a little bit confusing when a date is not set. So if we could do the things that are needed for this body to function as a whole and for council members to feel respected, that I think that if we're going to introduce legislation, if we're going to put on a date for a public hearing, that we should put a date for a committee. I'm not saying that the chair should not be able to decide when that date comes, or when that date is. And thank you, Councilmember Katz, for saying that in the event that this legislation is brought forward before earlier than what we might expect, that you would change that date. Thank you to Councilmember Lukey for saying closed session. We need one. I need one. It would be helpful for me. And so, although this is something that is urgent and that is important to the community, you know, as I was thinking about all this, the one thing that I thought about is the community wants what they want, rightfully so. And so they're not going to think about our policies that we have in place. And if I am, or if I get emotional, then I might disregard our policies. But what I don't want to do is set a precedent, right? And ask my colleagues on the board, I was always consistent in not wanting to break our policy. So that's my reason for not going forward with supporting this motion. no disrespect to you at all. It's just, when I have this feeling inside of me, I have to kind of go with it. And so the part of Shebra that I can't go against is me wanting to respect the policy that we have in place. And I want our community to know that even expediting it is still going to be about 90 days. It's not going to go into effect right away. And because this is so important, what I don't like to do is I don't like to backtrack. Whatever you put out there, whatever you say you're going to do, that's what the community is going to look for. In the event that we're going to make some changes, I want everybody to know what that's going to look like and be made aware in advance. So I don't know what the state is going to do. I want to make sure that we're in alignment, but I do wish that we hadn't had to come to this point, and a date would have prevented all of this. And so those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Evans. That was so nicely said. Thank you for doing that. And again, the date is April 17. It can be sooner if the General Assembly moves faster. Next, we have, and I see Councilmember Balcon has her hand up. You're going to go after Councilmember Mick. First, I have Councilmember Woljawando.
Thank you. Just want to clear up a couple of things. Lots been said. I've never made a motion like this, been on the council. This is my 8th year. Wouldn't have done it unless I thought I had to do it. And there's been a lot of, I think, less than full truth that was said by colleagues here. I introduced this bill on Tuesday, January 20th, almost 2 months ago. I was almost prevented from introducing the bill. I had to go and whip 6 of my colleagues before I heard that the bill would be put on the schedule. And I have the emails, happy to share them. Have the texts. Someone can MPIA it because we're going to get it out today. Because the gaslighting that is happening up here is insane. To sit here and act like this hadn't been blocked, and you said it very nicely, Councilmember Evans, if we would have had a date, none of this would have happened. You're exactly right. But I went to the chair of public safety and spoke to him several times and was told there would not be a date. That's after it was introduced. And I had to struggle to get it introduced. So the idea that, and I agree, we should do it the right way. I talked to people, and there was no surprise. I put out a press release saying I was going to do this. I talked about it last week to people. So please don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt you.
Yeah, let's keep it brief, but let people speak. Okay.
So if you don't agree, that's fine. But I took this step because I felt there was no other way to get it. And if you doubt that, we're talking about April 17th, I'm great. The April 17th date came after I said a press release saying I'm going to make a motion. So you can say that's coincidence or not, but I don't believe it is. It's not been my experience here. The final thing I'll say on this, the closed session. When I introduced the bill, we said on the county values and on this, we were going to have closed sessions. Never scheduled, never talked about. Introduced this bill 2 months ago. Never scheduled, never talked about. Now we'll have a closed session. Great. What happened 2 months ago? And while people are begging us to pass these bills. I yield.
Thank you. I'm just not going to comment anymore. Councilmember Kristen Mink.
I don't want this mischaracterized as being about a disrespect or whatever for any person or council member or chair. I respect my colleagues. I would certainly not be up here characterizing anybody's choices that they are making as disgusting. This is not actually about any individual. I signed on to the Trust Act, even though, to be clear, by the time I saw the text, there was no time for changes to the text, and there was a press conference that was scheduled for its introduction days later. So just to be clear about the whole plenty of time thing, but I signed on and encourage others to sign on because it was the right thing to do. And we could work it out if there were things to be worked out in committee. This is not about us and our personalities or our internal, it cannot be about our internal or external politics. This is about doing the right thing, which there may be differences of opinion up here about what that is. There often are differences of opinion up here about what doing the right thing means. I'm doing what I think is the right thing to do. I don't think that this bill should have been delayed. I don't think that it should have been delayed until, and that it should be, I appreciate that it has now been scheduled, which again, it was scheduled after that press release went out, but regardless, I can't say for sure if that was coincidence or not. I don't know, whatever. But the point is, I do not believe that it should have waited until after the state legislative session to have that public conversation for the reasons that I already stated. We're having some of the discussion now. We could have a real discussion about it on time next week. That's why I supported the motion and would continue to support the motion. And as our work moves forward, I believe that the bar, again, should be very, very high, extraordinarily high, for not moving as quickly as we can to have these conversations out in the public. I yield.
Thank you. Councilmember Balkin.
Thank you. I need to apologize first in case my connection is off. It's been a little bit slow here and there. So much to say. For me, this is not about politics. It is about process. And during the public hearing, council members who didn't co-sponsor the bill were publicly named and shamed in a coordinated way. And I did not co-sponsor the bill for the same reason that I've not co-sponsored many bills since day one. If I have questions about a bill, I don't co-sponsor that bill. And I want to work through committee. At the committee level is where we do the deep dive. And I just wanted to state that because I'm still getting emails and accusations about why I don't support this bill. And supporting the bill is much different than co-sponsoring the bill. We all know that the community doesn't. And as it's been conveyed to the community, that has not been fair. So I do have questions about this bill. And the issue for me is that the bill sets up the expectation that once the bill is passed, that ICE will no longer be masked in our community. I have great concerns whether that's going to happen. And in fact, I have great doubts that that's going to happen. So what that sets up the issue of implementation and who's going to implement this bill. And that question hasn't been answered, not even answered. Nobody's asking that question. And we need to have a deep dive in that. We need legal counsel on how this bill is going to be implemented. And I'm in favor of that. In terms of the process, I appreciate that it has been scheduled. I was concerned that it wasn't scheduled, and I talked to several of my colleagues about that. In this scenario, I defer to the chair of the Public Safety Committee, and I look forward to having this deep discussion. I'm sorry I'm not there. I sense the frustration and passion, and I look forward to having this discussion when it's scheduled. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President Balcom. I was just eating a chocolate, thinking of you, because she eats chocolates next to me all the time. I see Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I think we need to be extremely clear on, once again, miscommunication, and I'm being as diplomatic as I can possibly be, using the word miscommunication on this topic. I have said every time, there has never, ever been a time that I have not said that we would not have this Public Safety Committee meeting on this topic. I have said I am in favor, I've said it a couple times today, say it one more time at least, I am in favor of this legislation. I believe that the stronger legislation comes from the state of Maryland because they have more authority than we do. But I have said each and every time, in fact, as recently as last week, I believe the weeks run together, I said to Councilmember Jawando in my office that I would schedule this as soon as we heard from the state. And the reason I didn't put it on waiting beyond when the state last day the reason I said it for the 17th is because I felt that there was a good possibility that this could be faster and that there was no need to have something on the schedule until as soon as we could do it, we should do it. I also have said every time, and I've taken your phone calls, I have consistently said this would be scheduled, and that is exactly what has happened. The only reason that I decided that I thought that this should be scheduled now so that there would be no more miscommunication on what is and isn't being said. This is a very important and change for what we need to be doing. This is and for us to pretend that we have authority over anyone other than who we have authority over is not fair to the public. We need to have the discussion. We need to make certain that we can keep our public as safe as they can possibly keep them. I believe the state has a stronger authority than we do. In fact, I know the state has a stronger authority than we do. And if the state comes back and doesn't preempt us and all of that, then I think that anything we can do that would be faster should be discussed at that time. But I want to be very clear. I am supportive, and I want to be very clear that I have never, underline the word never, said that this would not be scheduled. And candidly, it upsets me that someone is saying that. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you, Chairman Katz. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, Councilmember Jawando, you and I have never discussed this, moving this forward today. You did not call me. You did not reach out to me. And in fact, you sat next to me during the county executive's budget meeting and mentioned nothing of this, mentioned nothing of the press release that was coming out later. Councilmember Mink, you did reach out to me over a week ago. And what I said to you at that time was, I would like to talk to Councilmember Katz because I believe he is scheduling this. And you said, okay, I will get back to you. And then the next thing I heard was on the Kojo Nambi show, Councilmember Jawando saying he was going to move this and then got the press release. I just want to clarify what was said and when I was communicated to and what I have said to people. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and I'm going to echo the same sentiment. I, as Council President, had not been approached by the lead of this bill, Councilmember Jawando, at all on it, and I have been proactively working with the Chair of Public Safety, who has constantly said that after the Maryland General Assembly sees this bill, even if it's at the beginning of the General Assembly session, he was going to move it to committee. So I need to restate that because the level of miscommunication and lies is really upsetting. We're going to move on with Councilmember Evan Glass. And honestly, guys, it's 11:04. If you're going to speak for the third time, keep it brief. Councilmember Glass.
I support this legislation. I am a co-sponsor, as I have co-sponsored every single piece of legislation aimed at protecting our residents. But what is happening here today is people are playing politics at the council, and it is disgraceful. Dividing this body while Donald Trump is dividing our community. That is not how we stand united, as we have been united in ensuring that every resident, regardless of their immigration status, is protected. When I was council president, which is not something everyone on this dais can say, I worked with all of my colleagues to make sure that legislation that was critical moved forward. That's how leadership works. You have to work with your colleagues. And as a co-sponsor of this legislation, I do support it. And I support everything this body is doing. But I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedson.
I think this is a low point for this body. And I can't remember a situation on an issue so important, one that is literally preventing families from sending their children to school, preventing people from receiving the resources and services they need in our community because of the fear that they're living with each and every day for their governing body of their local government to be fighting in this way over an issue I believe we agree on. And for wedges to be placed among colleagues on these issues, for advocacy to have gotten so personal, not because of disagreements, but because of politics, is a point I never thought the Montgomery County Council or Montgomery County government would come to. If we are going to fight back against Trump, if we are going to address the lawlessness of ICE, if we are going to protect our community, we have to be standing up together. And one of the saving graces that we have been able to have throughout this process is the unanimity with which we have spoken out on these issues. Today, that unanimity has been destroyed, not because of substantive disagreements of the interest of any individual member of this body wanting to protect our community, but because of personalities. That is something that I don't think any of us should accept. And so I am just deeply disappointed in this entire dynamic. I have said from the beginning that I support the legislation. There are questions about the legislation, the role of the state versus the county, the questions of whether or not, if you're in the city of Gaithersburg or city of Rockville or city of Tacoma Park, of whether or not our residents would have a certain expectation and yet not have the level of protection that we have told them that they were going to have. I will speak only for myself, although others have spoken for themselves. No sponsor of this legislation has ever spoken to me about this legislation. I have only been attacked about it in candidate forums and in public debates. I've never had a conversation about this legislation, was never approached about this legislation, was never lobbied about this legislation. I have a real concern here of what message we're sending to the public. And unfortunately, our colleague has put us in a position where we are creating a horrible false choice, where we're sending a message to the community one way or another, where I think the damage has already been done, where the question of whether or not their county government was standing united to support and protect them, which I believe we have been. Now the message is we aren't. And that pains me. Begrudgingly, I'm going to support the motion, but I'm supporting it only because of the message to the community to make some semblance of support for a community that has already been sent the exact wrong message at the worst possible time, and I think has put them more at risk. I'll yield back.
I think the fact that you have a council member who's saying that he's going to vote on a motion because he knows that a couple of colleagues are going to use that information to mislead the public, just as they did with the co-sponsorship, in an awful way. It's a new law that I have never seen before in Montgomery County or anywhere in the nation, especially with somebody like me who has worked on immigration for years as a lobbyist for CASA. And it's shameful, and it's really heartbreaking. When I became president of this council, I wanted to work with everybody together in unity, and today that unity has been destroyed for political issues. I see Council Member Mink wants to speak again. Please, after she speaks, I'm gonna call on a vote for this so we can move on. So you have the last word.
Just to be clear, I've never mischaracterized where anybody stood on this bill or any others. That's up to each individual member to say where they stand. And if you don't, all of us get questions all the time if we don't co-sponsor a bill at sign-on as to whether or not we support it. Or they say, why didn't you support it? And then we just respond and say we support it. So if anybody wants people to know that they support a bill, all you need to do is reply to your emails or your questions or your forum moderator and let them know. So informing people about who the co-sponsors are of a bill is extremely normal and standard practice, and everybody is allowed to then go forward from there and add their support to their constituents, as all of us do all the time. And that is certainly all I have done in this process. And then also, just again to be very clear, because I have someone looking at me and saying that there's lies, I have been consistent and honest in my comments that this bill should not, in my opinion, that this bill should not have been delayed till after the state session. I'm concerned about the precedent that it sets and about the message that it sends. We could have had a committee session and publicly discussed that exact question. I think that would have been appropriate as well. And so that is my reason for the motion and for continuing to support it. Thank you.
Okay, so let me restate. We have a motion by Councilmember Wojo-Wondo to move into full session next week the Unmask Act. This is a bill that already has a scheduled work session in public safety for April 17. So the motion is to bypass the committee and just bring it to full council next week. And let me note that we don't even have a staff report done for this bill. Nothing has been done for this bill. With that, the motion is placed, second by Councilmember Mink. Those in favor of a motion to move this bill forward for next week without a report by the council staff, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4. Those against the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The motion fails. With that, we're going to move on to the next item of the agenda. Is item 3, consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Don Lukey, second by Councilmember Lori Ansels. Those in favor, please raise your hand. It is approved unanimously. We're going to take a break until 1:30 p.m. Thank you very much.